Greetings and welcome to a Dead Leaves, Seaweed, Rotten Eggs 2 episode of Genre Grinder. I'm your host, Gabe, Alakazamakazu, and with me today is returning guest and my good friend, Luana Saitta.
Hi, everybody.
Did you ever sing that song in elementary school, The Witch's Brew?
No, how's it go?
You just keep on saying the things that are in your witch's brew, the dead leaves, seaweed, rotten eggs too, and something in my witch's brew. I got magic, Alakazam, and it just keeps going. It's like a children's song.
No, that's cute. I'm surprised
Anyway,
after having seen three movies, I did not hear it in any of them.
yeah, maybe it's not as common as I think it is. Maybe it was just my school and I just didn't know. That thing kind of thing happens. Well, as we're alluding to, we're talking about an oddly prevalent subgenre of movies about oblivious men who marry witches or whose wives become witches without them knowing. Luana is so nice. Every time I ask her to record, she says, just send me give me some ideas. I don't have something specific. And so this is a concept that I've had kind of in the back pocket since basically since Genre Grinder began, and I made a list of ideas.
Hmm.
Um and I was going to just do witch movies, and then I found out there's like just so many different kinds of witch movies, and then I was shocked. I was like, well, I guess there's movies like the TV show Bewitched, right? And I was like, wow,
Hmm.
there's a lot of movies that are basically the TV show Bewitched.
And they all pretty much predate Bewitched, I think, the
Yeah.
movies that we watch today.
In fact, two are on record as having been influences directly on Bewitched. Yeah, and I also find it interesting watching these movies. Not only does this subgenre exist and has existed since at least the 30s, it doesn't default towards outward misogyny. So, at the ones we watched, at least, and I would just assume from the period that it would just be, but I mean, they're sexist. There's definitely sexism in these movies, but I was surprised how much we were supposed to uh, see the witches as protagonists.
Yeah, all three were basically sympathetically portrayed,
Hmm.
which was nice.
Yeah,
Um, I had a lot of fun with these movies in general.
I tried to do a little bit of research. It's hard to do like witch movies. I think this trope in movies. I think there's a hint of it in Benjamin Christensen's silent docu horror movie Hoxton.
Mm.
There's references to witches using their wiles to make men fall in love with them. I'm sure in literature, I mean, if you go back in literature, this is like Greek mythology has versions of this with oh no, what's her name? I should remember this. Hecate? Is Hecate the one that
I think of
turns
Circe.
Circe? Thank you. Yeah, Circe
Hecate is
is
the goddess of magic.
right. I think I've been reading too many Wonder Woman comics lately. Is and I'm confusing the pantheon with the DC pantheon.
Well, the Wonder Woman villainess is named after the one from the Circe who
Yeah,
beguiled Odysseus and I believe turned his men into pigs.
into
Uh,
pigs. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, to keep you on with this, so yeah, I mentioned Bewitch. I'm gonna end up saying the word witch a million times, not just the word witch, but I'm gonna say Bewitched, which ran from for 254 episodes between 1964 and 1972. I am very much not a television historian. I talked about it on the new podcast that Patrick and I started about Visionaries, the cartoon from the 80s, that I was just not allowed to watch TV at a certain age. So I missed out on this sort of golden age of sitcoms. But because in the 2000s I didn't have money to pay for cable and I worked weird hours, I actually ended up watching a lot of Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie in
right,
reruns and
right.
syndication. And Bewitched, I genuinely enjoy the show, and I think
Hmm.
Elizabeth Montgomery rules. And there's a surprisingly deep lore behind that show.
All right. Bewitched is the
And
one where she like twitches her nose, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, okay.
And
I
she's
think
like,
I.
and she's definitely the protagonist, and a lot, and it's a lot of what we see here, where the man that she's married to is very confused by everything that's happening to us. You have 254 episodes. Eventually, he gets the hang of it, but yeah, it's cute.
Yeah, do they change the status quo up? Is there like a point in the show after which he knows?
Yes, he knows almost immediately, but he is not able to comprehend.
Oh, right, right,
And
right.
uh one of the things that is definitely taken from two of the movies we're going to talk about today is that her family fucks with him all the time
Mhm.
because they don't really approve, but they also don't want to like necessarily hurt him, so they're just mean to him all the time and they play tricks on him, and that's like the thrust of like half the episodes is her family being mean to him and her having to tell them to knock it off.
Yeah, that's definitely some stuff that was in our movies of today, huh?
I think another thing is people around my age and your age were introduced to the idea with the Sabrina the Teenage Witch television series has
Oh,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah, of course.
like, I think that there was, I never watched it, but I believe there was love interest in that, and then her aunts had this
Harvey,
whole,
yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah, but even that has source material, right? It was based off of a
yeah,
like 1960s comic book.
yeah, it was an Archie comic. And I guess one last surprise we had here is that I, without even really trying, I realized we were able to pick three big deal movies, and they're from three different decades. And I thought that ended up being kind of a nice,
Yeah,
uh,
indeed.
gave us a little picture of the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And then in the late 60s and 70s is when Bewitched was on. So kind of we're kind of in the
Mhm.
lead up. So Bewitched has a big, I maybe I should have made you watch some episodes, but I just felt like that was too far. And you had read an entire book for this podcast. So,
It was barely 200 pages.
oh, it sounds like a lot. I mean, I'm functionally illiterate, as listeners know, but
Yeah, a lot of my movie friends have a lot of problems reading books.
yeah, it's hard. It's really difficult. There's no pictures. Comics, on the other hand, oh my god, can read those all day long. Okay, well then let's get started. Let's get the first movie we watched was I Married a Witch from 1942. It is directed by Renee Claire. I believe, I'm not good at French names, but I believe it is Claire. It is
Yeah, that's how
based,
you pronounce
yeah,
it.
it's based on 1941 novel The Passionate Witch by Thorne Smith. And apparently, this was an incomplete manuscript that was discovered in Smith's belongings after he died.
Yeah.
And Norman H. Matson finished the story for him posthumously.
Apparently,
Uh,
that Mr. Smith was a kind of a bawdy novelist. He made funny and kind of sexy, jokey books.
yeah, I mean, Passionate Witch in 1941. That title's saying a lot, huh?
Yeah, yeah, indeed.
Basically calling her the sexy witch in 1941's terms.
And
Kind of
it's kind of
crazy.
crazy that like they kind of jumped on that book real quick, huh? Because this is a 1942 movie. Like they optioned it real because it wasn't even finished, so they were.
Yeah, it's a weird idea to think that there was this incomplete book that got completed and apparently then became such a big hit that they had to immediately make a movie about it.
Right.
That is a kind of strange.
In a
Uh,
wartime economy.
in the in this economy, what are we doing? I, I suppose this movie didn't cost a lot of money and was cute, so uh I a little bit about Claire. His career dates back to The Silence, which weren't that far behind us in 1942. I am unfamiliar with his work, but he seemed to specialize in these sort of romantic comedies. His first English language movie was The Ghost Goes West, which is a romantic comedy with ghosts. And he later did a
Cute.
Faustian adaptation, and I'm going to butcher this, La Beauté du Diable, from 1950, which is another horror fantasy adjacent, like it's like a sort of, it sounds like it's a sort of romantic comedy version of Faust.
La
So
beauté du diable.
diable. I'm the worst thing for me with French is I how to end the words. There's a joke on the show Home Movies where they say, this is our cat Alexandre, and the mom is like, is there a reason you're not saying the whole name? And that's how I always think of French. It's like you have to end it. Christine speaks
Ye-
French, so I get a lot of shit.
no, it is very true. You can never tell, like from the way a word is spelled in French, how you're going to pronounce it. It's just, it's always a crapshoot.
Yeah, I mean, English is awful too, but you know, I learned that
Yeah.
one. Anyway, this was Claire's second American-made film after The Flame of New Orleans, and apparently he was kind of desperate because that film flopped hard,
Oh well.
and it was produced by Preston Sturgis, which makes sense because this feels like a Preston Sturgis movie. and Wikipedia refers to it as a screwball comedy. I'm not sure if I think it's a full-on screwball, because I think of those Howard Hawks movies where people talk really fast as screwball comedies.
Mhm.
Uh, but it does have that sense of anything can happen at any moment, so it fits, I guess, the screwball thing.
Mhm.
Uh, the first joke we get is that we have a flashback to witch burning times. I'm guessing it's supposed to be in Salem, and there's this serious postscript about the burning, complete with this Latin reading from the so-called Book of Exorcism. But then they stop for a brief intermission, at which point Jolly
The
Hawkers come out and start selling snacks.
selling popcorn. Yeah.
Yeah,
I I'm gonna be real with you. The movie had me like right then and there. Like I laughed
yeah,
out loud when the snack vendor came by, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is the damn tone of the movie." And frankly, for a movie that barely runs over an hour, they kept it up, man. They
yeah,
kept they kept that pace, that snappiness, like just constant gag shit, constant cartoon shit.
yeah,
Like you say, you did not know what was going to happen next because, you know, the whole witch lore thing in this movie is just that, yeah, whatever gets us to the next funny gag, you know.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and yeah, no, this was also, by the way, my first ever Veronica Lake movie, and I love her. I, she's great. She's so funny. She's so cute. After this, wait. Did you send me that YouTube with like the army?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So, dear listeners, Gabe sent me a YouTube video with like an old army infomercial, let's say, for ladies, please don't wear your Veronica Lake hairdos at the munitions plant where you were. And then you see these ladies wearing that like sort of half fringe, half face covering fringe, the Veronica Lake, while operating heavy machinery. Oh, oh, and, so it's cool to know that she was a real icon that people were doing the Rachel, but for Veronica Lake.
Yeah, yeah.
This
I mean, we can just go right into Veronica Lake. I was going to talk about earlier, but yeah, she is the star of this, and her given name is great. It's Constance Frances Marie Ockelman, and I understand why she changed it, but that is a wonderful, wonderful name. And yeah, seen some of her. I've seen Sullivan's Travels, but yeah, I mostly know her as she's this sort of she was a pinup during World War II. Like she really did the effort during World War II, not just with the video you were describing, but she did like is it called? Is it the shows that when they go
the
out and
USO
they
shows.
yeah, yeah, she was a USO person and she sold war bonds. And actually, there is a rumor. Like, I'll get into this more later that she was quote difficult, whatever. You know, we'll get into that when we talk about the other actors. But there is a
Hmm.
sort of rumor that her career fell apart in part because she had to change her hair for that video, and the hair was so
Oh,
iconic.
right, right. Uh huh.
And then
Oh.
she wasn't making a lot of movies during the war, and they did a sort of uh there was a contest, and I don't know what company it was from, but it was a contest where you could bet on war bonds, and whoever it was basically auctioning her off to quote do the dishes for whoever won the auction.
Uh-huh.
And it was so it was a publicity stunt to sell war bonds, and it was seen as really tawdry, and
Uh-huh.
people were really judgmental about it, like it was prostitution or something. But it actually, like, I found like a poster of it, and it was really cute and funny, and it's clearly, and they kept like do the dishes was clearly like a joke, and
Hmm.
it doesn't seem like she even had to do the dishes. It was just a way to raise money. That happened and people were mad, but then I guess the really really bad thing that happened is then she tried to do a dramatic role, and she played a Nazi spy in a
Oh,
drama.
right.
And people were not, it was not a good time to play a Nazi spy, even a
Right.
yeah. So
And
anyway,
the war was still on at this point, or what?
yes, it was. And yeah.
Oh.
So
Uh,
there's other things going on there that, yeah, I'll talk about when I talk about the rest of the cast. But the backstory here is this witch burning basically curses, it's kind of vague, but it sort of curses this generation of people into shitty relationships
Right.
as a result of Jennifer is as Veronica Lake's character. Jennifer puts a curse on her narc husband and his descendants for burning her. And it's funny because throughout this movie, the curse seems less like actual fury and ire and anger, and more like that's what he deserves. Whatever, I'm having a good time. They don't
Right.
seem
Yeah.
that upset.
Yeah. They're basically being Statler and Waldorf from the Beyond.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. They're just two giggling sprites made out of smoke
And
floating about.
I like the idea that instead of cursing them to loneliness, it curses them to marry shrews, is the words that the film uses. So not just like loneliness, which is actually the worst, is loneliness, but to be in unhappy relationships for all
Mhm.
eternity. Uh, it's so the witch and her father, who is Daniel, he's a warlock, he's very powerful. They emerge from the cursed tree and they're shocked by how cavalier and horny society has grown since the years of the Puritans. And there's a lot of the movie is them just like you said, floating around as ghostly apparitions and going, "Wow, look at what they're dressed in! Look at the way that they're drinking!" And it's also
Yeah.
innocent by our standards, but it's very cute.
Like an absolute like friggin' grandma and grandpa party that you would not be embarrassed to bring any of your relatives to. Ooh.
Yeah, but like, yeah,
Uh,
if you're just awakening after Puritan times, you're kind of, I guess, I can see the shock. They sort of have a vague power set, which I kind of like. Like the writers aren't really concerned with Dragon Ball Zing
mhm.
the way everything works and power levels and stuff, but they can kind of do whatever they want. And
Yeah.
Daniel just sets a hotel on fire for fun. And he's not even corporeal at this point. He's just a gas.
Man,
Um,
he's basically Sauron level.
yeah,
Like that's the type of shit he was able to do before he got the ring back. He was still an eye floating about.
yeah,
Uh,
burning down
no, but yeah,
buildings.
one thing I thought was very funny is that like Jennifer doesn't actually really fall in love with what's his name, Norman, the
Mr.
Wallace
Woolley, yeah,
Woolley.
Wallace,
Yeah,
yeah,
because like she's like, ooh, 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 I'll, I'll take a personal hand in this myself. I'll put a spell on him, and he'll fall in love with me, and I'll be, this generation's iteration of the curse will be very personal, and I'll be the one to fuck him up. But then, like I don't remember what happens. Like she conks her head, and the painting falls on her head,
yeah, yeah. And she accidentally drinks the love potion,
the
right?
love potion,
Yeah,
and so basically she falls in love with Wallace Woolley by by accident. She's kind of an act of hubris,
yeah,
and there's never like that's just how it is now. Like, okay, she's that's the main relationship now. She kind of fucked herself over, and I thought that was very funny.
yeah. It's a
There,
good
there's
joke.
no there's no attempt to kind of buy into it. This is just a prank gone wrong, and screw it. This is the direction we're going in now. There's no moment where where the spell is lifted. She simply remains in love with him to the end. Spoilers, I guess.
Yeah,
I
yeah. I
thought
mean,
it was so cute when they had babies and everything at the end. It's like
yeah,
little Jennifer on a
which
broom.
which ended up being a thing on Bewitched, is they have a kid who
Oh,
has
really?
powers. Yeah. So yeah,
Cute.
they took that too. They probably wrote it down somewhere, future episodes. I feel like that she is sort of like Bugs Bunny level imp, ruining in the beginning
Yes.
before she's in love with him and she's just trying to ruin his life.
Uh,
She's just like Bugs Bunny showing up in the bed and he can't explain any of it, and he doesn't seem to be enjoying any of it, is also really
yeah.
funny to me. Like the most one of the most beautiful actresses of her generation is throwing herself at you and you're just like, ew, no, yeah. It's
Come on, man. Lady, come on.
you gotta get out of here.
Oh, one of my a joke that made me laugh was like, "Yes, I'm a blonde. Would you prefer I was a brunette?" "Lady, get out of here. You'll be a redhead." When they're in the burning building. Ah.
My favorite joke with the burning building part, well, not my favorite joke, but one of my favorite jokes is when they go to the burning building, the hotel's owner is just laughing, and they ask him why, and he says, "Oh, it's fully insured, and I love building new things."
That's the level we're working on, baby.
And two people died in that fire because those are the two bodies that Veronica Lake
Oh, yeah,
and
and
Daniel
Daniel
take
left.
over. So
Yeah.
it did cause death. They don't really explore that, but they have taken over bodies of two people who are now dead. And
But
they only
wait,
died because of the fire.
if Jennifer and Daniel took over those bodies, then for all we know, nobody's aware that they're dead, I guess?
Yeah, well, or nobody seems to miss them at the very least.
Yeah,
Like
right?
you'd think maybe that would be if they would have had a sequel, it would have been about the whoever Veronica Lake's body, her family comes looking for, and like what's going on? Who's this man you married? Well, actually, I'm going to talk about the script real quick. It's credited to
Mhm.
Robert Pirosh and Mark Connolly, but Dalton Trumbo was initially working on it before he got in a fight
Oh,
with
cool.
Preston Sturges and left. So his name isn't on it because he quit or was fired, not because he was blacklisted, because that hadn't happened yet.
Mhm.
And Sturgis was the one who kind of propelled the project along after Claire kind of came to him with it, and Sturgis kind of, it seemed like he was sort of doing a favor for his friend, but
Right.
then they got in a fight, and so Sturgis left, so his name's not on it either. And it was his idea to cast Lake, but then he got in a fight with Lake too. So it kind of seemed like Sturgis just wanted to make the movie himself, and probably just should have, but was in a situation where he couldn't because he had already
Uh-huh,
promised someone else. um,
Man, it's surprising how good the movie still came out
yeah,
considering how many people got fired and
yeah, put it up there with Ravenous, which you and I talked about, however, like
yeah.
a couple years ago. Movie that should have been garbage because it went through so many filmmakers and scripts, but somehow it's fucking awesome.
I
Prior to
mean,
even
uh
meeting Veronica Lake, Walter Murch, who plays Wallace, March. No, I'm sorry, not Walter Murch. Hold on, I wrote
Frederick
that down
March.
wrong. Frederick March. Sorry, Frederick March. He immediately talked shit into the press and said that she was a brainless little blonde sexpot void of any acting ability, and somehow he didn't realize that would have gotten back to her. In which case, she's like, "Okay, fuck this guy." Called him a pompous poser, and they fought the whole time. And it works in the film's favor, let me tell you.
Yeah,
Knowing these people
apparently.
hated each other makes it
Uh,
all the funnier because she's just being mean to him and ruining his life. And he doesn't want her there. There's so little romance. It's very funny how unromantic the whole thing is.
yeah, yeah, like, they're just constantly in situations, and he's like, "Oh, come on, lady, what are you doing?"
He's so the plot is that he's going to marry a guy. He's running for governor, and he's going to marry a very powerful man's daughter as a means of helping his gubernatorial run, basically. And
Uh,
this woman absolutely hates him too. There's a scene where apparently he one of the scenes where he's carrying her, so I'm guessing it's the scene where he's carrying her out of the burning building. She
Mhm.
claims that her and the crew, who also hated him, got together and strapped 40-pound weights under her dress. So he's carrying her plus an extra 40 pounds, and it was hurting his back. And then, I
That's
wrote this down because
incredible.
I don't really understand what she's saying. But in her autobiography, she tells another story, and I'm just going to read what she said because I'm trying to figure out what exactly she means. But she says the camera was lopped off at the waist, and this occurred below frame. And she says he was standing directly in front of the chair, and I brought up my foot between his legs, and I moved my foot up and down, each upward moment pushing ever so slightly into his groin. Pro that he is, he never showed his predicament during the scene, but it was easy for him. But it wasn't easy for him, and I delighted in knowing what was going on through his mind. Naturally, when the scene was over, he laced into me, and I just smiled. So I don't
Oh,
know if she's kicking him in the balls or if she's trying to like arouse him in the middle of the scene. I think she's just kicking him in the balls.
that's how I read it, yeah.
Yeah. Either way, it's very funny. And then Claire's problem, he said, not only did these two people hate each other, but
Mhm.
Lake would do her best takes first. That was the kind of actress she was. She would just read the line and that would be it. And her takes would steadily get worse because she was getting bored. Whereas
Oh.
March was classically trained, so he wanted a whole bunch of takes to get better. So Claire ended up having to trick them by pretending to do um, a bunch of like telling Lake that they were doing just practice runs.
Rehearsal, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, rehearsals. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. And then when he knew that March was going to get up to that level, then telling Lake this is the real take. So, yeah,
Hmm.
you'd think it would ruin the movie that the lack of chemistry between your romantic leads, but it just makes it funnier. I genuinely think.
Yeah, this is crazy.
Oh well, and the original lead, Joel McCrea, he quit because he didn't want to work with Lake because he hated working with her on Sullivan's Travels. And then actor Eric Bracken, and amongst all this, you called her a bitch in the press, which couldn't have been cool. Like calling someone a bitch in the press in the '40s must have been like dropping an F bomb. I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a it feels like it would be kind of a big deal now even if you straight up
Yeah,
call someone a bitch.
but then there's a part of me it's like yeah, I'm sure she was kind of, she might have been difficult to work with because she was kind of impish, it sounds like. But then like Alan Ladd loved working with her, and
Oh, right.
they got cast against each other 3 times because audiences loved their chemistry. And I don't feel like Alan Ladd's that different from these other guys, so I don't know, maybe they just couldn't handle a strong independent woman.
Let me tell you, if Veronica Lake wanted to kick me in the balls, I would have been honored. Like, Mr. Claire, let's do another take. Veronica, kick me in the balls again.
I think it will be a better take this time. It's my motivation. uh
I'm gonna lift up my dress this time. Get in there, Veronica.
Yeah, I mean, I ended up doing so much research on her rather than the movie because she was married to Andre de Toth, who was the director of House of Wax, the original House of Wax with Vincent
Right, all
Price.
right.
And the story is, again, it's in her autobiography, and it's sort of like it's quotes, so it's a little hard to understand what exactly is being said, but it sounds like he bought an airplane and she
Mhm.
got a pilot license and literally just flew away from LA to New York without telling him. And that's how they got separated. She just did a solo flight. She just left LA and went to New York.
Uh, Everything I'm hearing about Veronica Lake makes her sound cooler.
Yeah. And
Goodbye.
where did she go? I don't know. Like asking the servants, have you
Like the,
seen Veronica? No.
it's a Mr. Burns and Smithers situation.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. It was great. Um, and then
Uh,
Claire actually has really nice things to say about her, despite
okay.
all Sturgis's complaints, and that he claims the trouble with her is that she didn't have confidence in herself. Nothing could convince her that
Oh,
she was beautiful. It was a fight every morning to make her face the camera. So it kind of sounds
oh
like she had a
my
little bit of that
God.
Marilyn Monroe tragedy thing going on too.
Right. Oh,
Yeah, really cool,
I
just cool
wish I could
person.
have been there for her.
Yeah, wish could have been
I
there to
I
say,
could have
"Get
been
leave
the
Veronica
the
alone."
gay best friend. Yeah, exactly. Well, I would have been Viola Davis lifting Kevin Hart, and Veronica Lake would have been Kevin Hart. You know, in that meme where she's like
Yeah,
pointing
yeah,
like,
yeah.
"Hey, yeah, get off."
Leave him alone. But yeah, so I have a little bit of information on March. I don't know if you care as much about that, but he was the co-founder of the Hollywood Anti-Nazi League.
Oh, that's
He was
cool.
questioned on the House Un-American Activities Committee, and he didn't name names, but also wasn't blacklisted. And he and his wife Florence Eldridge who he remained married to from 1927 till his death in 1975, later
Oh,
sued an anti-communist newsletter.
okay.
So
Well, it seems
back
like
in
a
his
cool guy
corner.
then.
But then I found out the weirdest factoid here is he was a member of a group of students at the University of Wisconsin Madison, which is the school my dad went to and where my friend Megan works to this day. He was a part of a group
Oh,
called the Ku Klux Klan, which was
what?
reportedly completely unrelated to the other Ku Klux Klan.
I feel like that is a branding problem. Like,
Yeah, we're
okay.
talking. I mean, the Ku Klux Klan are around this turn of the century, and he would have been going to college around the turn of the century, so they are around, and it was still controversial enough that there were implications throughout his life that he was a white supremacist, and they actually pulled his name from a memorial theater in Wisconsin later. My guess is that, like a lot of college students, he was an edgelord asshole at that age.
Right, right, right.
And so, but yeah, either way, anti-Nazi League, he was outspoken supporter of civil rights, and he had ties to the NAACP. So even if he was a white supremacist dickhead in his youth, he mostly made up for it in his later life. So I'm for him, even if he didn't like Veronica Lake. And you know he kind of got his comeuppance anyway, with the 40-pound weights getting kicked in the crotch.
Yeah, totally.
He is a multi-Oscar and Tony winner. I'm mostly unfamiliar with him. Desperate Hours was the only other movie of his I'd seen, but
Mhm.
his I think his performance, I think Dick York based his performance on Bewitched on this guy. That's the level of confusion, the sort of like, what's another version of this? The dad from Mary Poppins has a similar like what kind
Right,
of
right,
thing
right,
going
yeah.
on. And then also another thing in Bewitched has her uncle. I'm trying to remember who played the uncle in Bewitched, but he has that sort of impish quality that the dad has in this. Uncle Arthur. And yeah, he was played by Paul Lind. So the gayest man of the 60s played her uncle. So yeah, I think in this it's a Australian character actor named Cecil Kellaway, who I am also not really familiar with. I think that if I have one complaint, it's that the movie should maybe end with the wedding. I like the stuff that happens after it, but it almost feels like they made a quick sequel after the movie. It's just sort of like this whole additional bit where she uses her powers to win him the governor. Like there's a funny scene where he gets 100% of the vote,
Yeah.
and he realizes maybe this is a bad idea. But it's sort of like the last 15-20 minutes of this film is like a sequel crammed into this. It still has some really good gags. There's part where I didn't write down the exact number, but one of his people said, "Did you say she's 8,000 years old?" And he goes, "No, that's her father. She's only 240." It's another really funny dumb joke. But yeah, that was me. That's pretty much my only complaint, is that it's almost too much of a good thing because it keeps going and there's like an extra little tag on. I don't know if that's really much of a complaint. I love that the father frames Wallace for murdering him, and he forces to go through with his wedding anyway after accidentally having killed a magic, well, thinking he's murdered a magicianal, a
Yeah.
warlock.
And like, yeah, exactly. Then, but he was only banished into a bottle. But
Yeah.
all of the world knew that he'd killed this guy.
um and I wrote here that Susan Hayward plays the fiance that hates Wallace. She's very funny.
Mhm.
And there's a part where her father says, "You need to smile during the bridal march," and she makes this grimace that's like Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator 2, as, trying to smile as the Terminator. And then I have a note here saying that Robert Webb's music was nominated for a Best Score at the Academy Awards. He did not win. But I liked the
Oh, cool.
opening titles are the Bridal March, but the spooky Halloween version of the Bridal March.
Right,
It's
right,
really
right.
fun. But yeah, that's all I had on that one. So, you have any other thoughts on I Married a Witch?
I thought it was very fun and funny, and it made me want to seek out more Veronica Lake material.
Yeah, it has a Criterion release, which, I wasn't about to drop the dollars to buy that just for the podcast. Maybe I should have. But now that I actually saw it and really enjoyed it, now I think I've added it to my, like, next time there's a Criterion sale, I might try to get it.
I thought it was an absolutely wonderful film. Um, I uh, I was surprised. I was kind of, going in neutrally, but it was funny as hell.
Yeah,
A very charming leading lady. In and out in under, we talk about a tight 90, but this was barely an 80.
yeah,
and
yeah,
and like you say, it even feels like there's a mini sequel within those 80 minutes. Whoa, that's a lot of incident packed in there.
yeah,
So no, yeah, wonderful film. Glad to have seen it.
yeah. I've come to really like 40s comedies in general. They're all
Mhm.
quick and snappy, and yeah, everybody's trying to avoid thinking about the war, so they're cute. All right, so then we'll move on to Bell, Book and Candle from
Mhm.
1958, which is kind of the same movie on a level, but it was adapted from a 1950 play by John Van Druten. It was of the same name, and the play famously had Rex Harrison and Lily Palmer, um,
Oh, cool.
who then they tried to get for the movie, and various reasons that didn't work out. It's directed by Richard Quine, who began as an actor and sort of became a director. So his IMDb has a lot of acting credits. Like I was saying, I liked that we ended up with these different decades, because that felt like a perfect 40s Hollywood movie, and this very much feels like a perfect late 50s Hollywood movie. It's Technicolor, it's beautiful production design. Cinematographer James Wong Howe is perhaps the most talented guy on the crew, and he shoots the shit out of every scene. I have a short list here. He did Sam Fuller's The Baron of Arizona, which is this gorgeous gothic western with a young Vincent Price in it. And then he did
Oh.
The Sweet Smell of Success and HUD, which is not one of my favorite movies, but looks great. And John Frankenheimer's Seconds, which is, I think, maybe one of the scariest movies ever made. And at least 30 or 40% of that is because he has this really eerie black and white photography throughout it. It's like fish eyes and stuff like that. It's really a
Hmm.
terrifying movie. And he's also Anime Wong's cousin, and I never knew that until I was looking at this.
Oh, cool.
Kuhn, the director, I think I'm pronouncing that one right. He followed this up with Sex and the Single Girl in 1964, which is the only one of his movies I've seen other than this.
Oh,
Or no,
cool.
I should say I saw one other one, How to Murder Your Wife, which
Hmm.
sounds awful, but is a reasonably funny kind of Jack Lemmon vehicle. It has
Okay.
this very comic strip inspiredness to it. Jack Lemmon is kind of going to be important to this movie too. It's
Yeah, I was gonna say he got along well with Peter Kine or Richard Kine.
so the thing most people think of when they think of this movie, which I had never put together. For years, I knew that there were two movies with Jimmy Stewart and Kim Novak as the leads. But
Yeah, Vertigo.
I always assumed one came out and people liked it, so they reteamed them again. But both movies came out in 1958, and they
Yeah,
were
this is
part.
complete cosmic coincidence. How weird is that?
No, it was a tit for tat trade between the studios.
Oh, okay.
Whereas Novak was on loan to Paramount to film Vertigo, and Columbia was guaranteed reciprocity. So someone said, "Oh, we should do it for the Kim Novak movie we already have. We should just copy their combination here," which is funny because I think it's easily the most awkward thing about the movie. And I like this movie a lot, but this is the movie that ages the worst, and it has a problem that you can solve very easily by casting someone who is not Jimmy Stewart as the lead.
I was thinking that like this movie is almost like the story of Jimmy Stewart's character from Vertigo, but like what he imagines is happening. Like,
Yeah,
"Oh, no, no, she's totally into you, dude." You just
yeah.
uh, she just, they're just for lore reasons, she can't be, too enthusiastic. You just gotta pull it out of her, dude. Uh,
And well, and the other thing is someone pointed out, it wasn't me, and I think it was just on a forum, so I don't remember who it was, but I'm sure there's some critics who have mentioned this. Vertigo is a movie where Jimmy Stewart takes away Kim Novak's what's the word?
Autonomy?
Autonomy. Thank you. Basically takes away her autonomy because he's crazy and she loves him. And then this is
Right.
a movie where Kim Novak takes away Jimmy Stewart's autonomy
Yeah.
with magic. So they are kind of mirror images of each other. When one's a really melodramatic, I love Vertigo, but it is a kind of fucked up movie.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
And then the other one's this totally goofball. It does have this one does have some very sad scenes in it, but it's a pretty goofbally movie. It's pretty light hearted, I would say.
Right, right, right.
But man, it casting Jimmy Stewart as a man obsessed with a younger woman makes sense. Especially because they kind of did it against type because he was usually a hero and everything. So having him as this kind of creep kind of gave it some weight. But casting him as just some dude who's his age and looks like he looks, who Kim Novak becomes very interested in. Initially, I guess just to fuck with him. This is another one where the witch accidentally messes up her spell and makes herself fall in love too. It's less, it's not that she just drinks the wrong thing, it's more about they get more into like the metaphysics of how the love spell works. But it's really hard to believe that Kim Novak, like at the absolute height of her beauty, is falling for this guy who has got permanent Mr. Burns arms the whole movie.
Yeah, I got like, I mean, I was thinking of there's this Simpsons joke where Jimmy Stewart is working at a bank and he's like, "Oh no, the money's not here. It's at Bill's house. It's at Fred's house." He has that, parody, Jimmy Stewart parody energy in this movie because obviously in the I've married a witch genre, the male lead is going to be confused and befuddled a lot,
Yeah, he's kind of
and
the butt of the
and
joke.
right. And so to have him at, like you say, at that age, looking like that, being that, oh, hey, hey, see, oh, like, uh, that kind of puts a damper on the whole main romance. Like you say, like Kim Novak at the height of her beauty, like, oh, she's definitely gonna give up her powers for this fucking Mr. Burns guy.
It says that they tried to get Cary Grant, who's basically the same age as Jimmy Stewart, but at least Cary Grant has that sort of je ne sais quoi. Like I
Right,
get
right.
it when people are like attracted to Cary Grant. It makes
Uh-huh.
sense. I like Jimmy Stewart. I
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
I really like his westerns. Love Rear Window, but it's funny because Rear Window is kind of the same thing, where there's this man who has Grace Kelly throwing herself at him, and he's just ignoring her the whole movie. And I know that that's part of like the theme and metaphor, but it's so frustrating. So two of the most beautiful women of the 50s are just throwing themselves at this guy who is wasting away, and his voice is getting
Right.
weirder and weirder the older he gets.
Oh.
He's just sort of like, sometimes it is funny in this movie. Like at a certain point, I'm like, I wish they would have leaned into it even more. So it was just Jimmy Stewart going, what the whole time, because they have no romantic chemistry at all. Like,
Right, right.
there's
I
nothing there. It's
I think this not, I think I read somewhere that this was the last time Jimmy Stewart was ever cast as a romantic lead.
yeah. Yeah, I think
Well,
everybody noticed. I think everybody noticed. I mean, Vertigo was a bit of a flop too and didn't get very good reviews when it first came out. So I think the
right.
two things kind of made people say, okay, this guy can't be our romantic lead anymore. He might have also just said, okay, yeah, I can't do this. Vertigo's the better movie, but this is a much better Kim Novak movie if you're interested in Kim Novak as an actress, not just like an object. a pretty
Right,
object.
right.
And a lot of this movie is about putting her in beautiful clothes, really
Mhm.
very era appropriate, very expensive clothing, and shooting her like a perfume ad. Like so much of the movie is just Wong Hao just sort of just making this beautiful woman look like the most sumptuous thing you've ever seen, and just
Right,
like
right.
you want to buy whatever she's selling, and it
Mhm.
almost takes place outside the realms of the plot of the story, because it's sort of her using her powers sometimes. So it's it's hard to describe, but it's sort of ethereal in a good way, I think.
No, yeah, yeah, totally.
Oh, you
And
know what?
I do
Agency. I just thought of the word I was trying to think of. They take that one movie's about taking away her agency. This movie's about taking away Jimmy Stewart's agency. That was the word I was looking for, and I just anyway.
eh,
Sorry.
no, I got what you I mean, I think autonomy was close enough.
Yeah, yeah. I knew there was a word.
And it kind of reminded me of a couple of years later, that touch of mink with Doris Day and Cary Grant,
Hmm.
in fact, which
Hmm.
I believe was also both of their like last, or at least Cary Grant's uh,
Hmm.
last romantic lead pick, because like Doris Day is supposed to be like a young lady looking to get married, but like she was no longer, that was definitely a role for a young 20 something. And
Hmm.
Cary Grant, being Jimmy Stewart's age, was entirely out of. It's funny that was just a thing that people kept. People talk about. Nowadays we live in the age of IPs, of
Hmm.
franchises, and we don't really have stars anymore, and you don't really have that concept anymore of like, oh, this star is kind of going past their sell by date as in this type of role.
Hmm.
Like you might see it in like these, aging action stars and doing in the directive video like Seagal and Bruce Willis, bless him
Hmm.
before he retired, like they're not really getting up out of their chairs, but they're still doing BTV action roles. And I guess in those days when the stars were the bankable items, they would just trot them out for as long as they could until people were like, oh no, this don't work no more. And the fact that you got names like real names like Jimmy Stewart and Cary Grant kind of do these sort of embarrassing roles, just
Hmm.
because, well, we're trying to get the quote unquote our money's worth out of this IP or this bankable star. But unlike an IP, you can't reboot a bankable star. You need a new star. And the fact that they would just end up in these ill-fitting parts, that is a phenomenon that kind of, I think, mostly went away when the age of the movie star ended.
Yeah. I mean, there's the way you can say this movie in particular, those two and Touch of Mink were kind of towards the end of the studio era, and then you're going to
Right,
get
yeah.
the new Hollywood people coming out, and but
Mhm.
new Hollywood still did have its stars. It was just sort of a different kind of star. They were more
Mhm.
like they were like independent entities that could choose to be cast against type instead of like Cary Grant, who basically plays the exact same man in every single movie he's ever been
Right,
in,
right, right.
and he's very good at it. But I guess
Mhm.
Tom Cruise is still kind of playing the exact same guy he's been playing since the '80s.
Mhm.
But not a lot of people do that anymore. And Tom Cruise does challenge himself every once in a while. Well, the story of this one is that there is a larger witch sort of underground that's been there for a long time, and they all run a jazz club called the Zodiac, and that's sort of like
Where
the level of witchery in this movie, is that it's not really an anti-Christian thing, like it's
Mhm.
implied in the last movie. It's sort of like a mix of like the Zodiac and vague pagan things. And then Gillian, not Jillian. I kept on. She's named Gillian, not Jillian. Is Kim Novak's
Mhm.
character, but she is a sort of anthropologist. She almost has the same job as what's his name on Andor. Now that I think about it, it's
Uh,
sort.
uh,
She's selling.
fucking
Uh,
Stellan Skarsgård, yeah.
yeah, she's selling these, and then she has this whole attachment to this underground movement.
Oh my god, yeah.
That just dawned on me just this second. Oh, maybe I just have Andor on the brain. Anyway, yeah, it's definitely more just magic and not unchristianness. And they do the one thing they do that's sort of funny is that they have allusions to true Witchfinder stuff. It sort of makes it a little uncomfortable. I think they mention I can't remember his name, but the character that Witchfinder General, they mention him,
Matthew Hopkins.
Matthew Hopkins, that Vincent Price played in Witchfinder General. Yeah, like, and it's so it's like a little bit of like that's a little too heavy for this movie, man.
Yeah,
But
that's a fucked up movie. That's a fucked up.
that's a fucked up history. That's just like at like the
Huh.
worst, one of the worst times in history. But they keep stuff like in this universe, witches do float. But then there's this cool thing that I like on a lore level where they say that witches can't experience true love, and if they do, they will lose their witch powers. But in my mind, it was always sort of like Geralt the Witcher, where he just sort of says, "Oh yeah, I have no emotions," but he actually has this deep well of emotions. He
Right,
just
right.
doesn't want to seem weak or to have to deal with drama and stuff like that. So he just sort of pushes the stereotype that he has no emotions. I sort of got a little of that from this. But she does, it is that you will lose your power. So I think it's a messy metaphor because it's sort of like women have to give up their independence in order
To get
to
married, yeah.
get married and fall in love. And I think you can read it as a sacrifice, but the
Mhm.
subtext is a little bit Puritan. But at the same time, while we were watching this, Christine was thoroughly moved by all these scenes. So I'm like,
Aw.
maybe I'm overreading it. Maybe it's really not an anti-feminist message like I'm saying it is. Maybe it's just that the sacrifice for love is really what I'm supposed to be focusing on here.
Yeah, I think that maybe a guy that's not Jimmy Stewart would have sold that better. 'Cause, like, this confused old man that you're, trading in your Zodiac Jazz Club for and your
Yeah,
powers, again, I'm willing to read it positively, but I do think that casting kind of wrecks it.
yeah,
I thought it was a cute movie in general, like fun to watch. I think my favorite guy was that alcoholic, like the occult specialist, who,
yeah.
Ernie Kovacs, I think, is
Ernie
the
Kovacs, yeah.
he had the most laugh lines, I think.
It's a very weird thing because he is in a way to bring him to, I don't understand why the witches want to bring him to sell another book to James Stewart. I'm never quite clear on what their reasoning was there, but he comes and he sold this book on Mexican magic to Jimmy Stewart runs a publishing company, and now he wants to do one on underground New York magic, and they all participated in this thing. And so some of the witches are like, we can't let him know these things. But then the Jack Lemmon witch is who is the funniest. I'm such a sucker for Jack Lemmon. His character is introduced playing bongos, making a funny face, and I laughed fucking hard at just the funny face he was making. So I'm such a sucker for him that I don't know if I can trust myself on him being the best character. But there's this whole subplot that's like a separate movie that might actually be a better romantic comedy where Jack
Lemon,
and Ernie Kovacs start to like work together on the book. And
lemon,
this is bringing Kovacs in to learn things, and they're getting into like almost a lover's spat over how this book's going to work. And you can even do it in, it doesn't have to be a gay relationship. It makes it more interesting that it's a gay relationship, but you could have just cast one of them as a woman, and that would
Right,
be an
yeah.
interesting movie just as itself.
Mhm.
I was really into that and kind of bummed out when we had to go back to Jimmy Stewart.
Yes.
The closest thing he gets is that they say something about the Kinsey report, which is pretty randy. But there's a mention his fiance. That's the other thing about this movie. I didn't realize these were both movies about someone on the eve of their wedding meeting a witch and changing their mind. I didn't
Right,
realize
yeah.
that's, and this one's not all about the wedding. That's only like the first, that he drops out of the wedding with his fiance, who seems like a a decent fit for him, but is a mean woman. And so really the only reason Kim Novak is even pursuing him is because he is dating this girl who was really mean to her in college.
Yes, I think that that was probably where I started to go sour on the main relationship.
Yeah.
'Cause, like, at first she's like, "Oh, no, 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 Elsa Lanchester, I will not bedevil him. I will not put a spell on him. I don't break up, I'm not a homewrecker." Okay, sure. But then the movie starts kind of throwing ammunition at us for like, maybe you should home wreck them. Maybe you
Yeah.
and I'm just like, if witches are amoral, just let her be a home wrecker. Who gives a shit? But like giving us these kind of outs about like, no, no, she's a total bitch. She's constantly mean. Ugh, and,
Yeah.
okay, man. And I do not like, or at least like, I'm not a fan of female characters being set up against each other.
Right. Just
And
for shallow reasons in particular.
yeah,
It's not like
exactly.
their families have a feud that's gone on for generations. Like, it's just that they were mean to each other in college.
Yeah,
It's yeah.
exactly. It's already kind of a like, oh, just, sure, whatever. She falls for friggin',
Jimmy Stewart,
Grandpa Stewart here.
Mr. Burn Arms.
And that's strike one. Strike
Yeah.
two, apparently, if she actually does fall for him, that means that she's going to lose her powers. Strike two. Okay. Strike three. He's already married, but she's a total bitch. So, and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, come on, man. I was kind of zoning out for
Yeah.
their plot line, which kind of blows because it's an important,
Yeah,
it's the
well,
main plot line.
it's really I watched this movie without doing other things. I was focusing on this movie and I still was not clear on why they were doing things at the beginning of the movie. It's unclear. I'm guessing the play is longer and makes it a little more clear why they're doing these things, but yeah, just the fact that you realize that she's just doing this because she hates uh Stewart's fiance, who's played
Mhm.
by Janice Rule. And I do have to say that however badly planned that sequence is, it is very funny that Novak remembers that Rule's character was afraid of thunder in college. And
Mhm.
so she cues Jack Lemmon, who is her brother, his name's Nicky, and he plays bongos in a beatnik band. they they chase her out of the club playing Stormy Night. It's a very she's trying to focus, and Jimmy Stewart is being totally unhelpful. His fiance is basically being assaulted by beatniks, singing in her face until she runs away, and he's just like, huh. Wow, what's happening here? Instead of saying, "Hey, no, no, knock it off," he's like just watching it happen. It's the power of Jack Lemmon, I guess. I don't know. There's a lot about this
Also,
movie. There are crossovers with actors, and Jack Lemmon in particular. This was just before Some Like It Hot. And I feel like this movie, if it had been directed by Billy Wilder, would have been a classic. I think
right,
it just
right,
needed I'm not that the director was bad, but I think it needed someone of Billy Wilder's caliber to really make it work.
mhm,
And
right,
he
right,
wouldn't
right.
have hired Jimmy Stewart either. I think
And
Wilder was
exactly.
he was a powerful enough filmmaker to go, "No, we're not going to do that." God, no, I really do like Jack Lemmon. Like I was seeing on the Letterboxd reviews, they were all excited because Jack Lemmon plays a gay man, and I'm not sure if I agree with that necessarily. I think that's a little bit of reading into what you want, but he does have this sort of again this sort of relationship with the Kovacs character that lasts the movie.
Right,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
they don't break up on bad terms.
Uh-huh.
It's nice. It's nice.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that aspect of like read into it what you want, but I feel
Hmm.
like the movie does give you enough munition for it. Like, I don't
Yeah.
think he's ever with a woman in the movie. Not that I
Yeah.
recall. He's not even
No.
like really being flirty with some showgirl at the Zodiac Club or
No.
whatever.
He hangs
Um,
out with his sister and his aunt. Those are his best friends.
while, while playing bongo at the jazz club.
At the jazz
Like,
club and making a very silly face that speaking of the aunt who I is also Gillian's neighbor. It's
Mhm.
Elsa Lancaster, who also lusts after Jimmy Stewart, and I think that she's also out of Jimmy Stewart's league, even if they're like basically the same age. Uh, but she's like one of the best cult actresses of her generation. She was the
Right.
Bride of Frankenstein,
Mhm.
and she was
And
in Mary Poppins, as I was saying earlier.
yes, one of the bad nannies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and she's in the
she was
original
so
Willard.
funny in this.
She's hilarious, and she's like,
Right.
and one of the most interesting things on a character level is her wanting to know what love feels like. So she's capable of really deep emotions and empathy, but she doesn't understand what love is, and I found that really interesting on a character level, that she keeps asking, like, could you describe it? What is it like, I've never felt it before, what is going on?
Uh-huh,
And
uh-huh.
yeah,
Yeah.
and she was famously Charles Laughton's supposed beard. They were married for many years.
Aw.
And
That's cute.
if you've ever seen Witness for the Prosecution, which is another Billy Wilder movie,
Yes, that's a
she's
great one.
they have the best chemistry. They're so funny, as they're like little one-liners
Uh-huh,
at each
uh-huh.
other.
Yeah.
Great movie. Like, oh, love it. And then I was looking at the IMDb trivia, and so much of it is about the cat.
Pie Wacket.
Pie Wacket. And apparently they had to have a lot of pie wackets, which makes sense. You don't want this one cat on set. And the one of them was named Houdini, and he was quote the most handsome. So they wanted to use him in the most shots, but he wasn't trained. So the only way they could get him to do things is chase him. And apparently it really stressed him out, and he was never the same cat after the movie.
Aw.
So knowing that fact, I was watching it, and like, oh god, they're chasing Houdini again to make him go over there. And another thing claims that one of the Pyewackets was Novak's actual cat, so it's probably the one that she's holding in most of the scenes. Would make
Aw,
sense. But this
cute.
is another Matthew Hopkins reference, because Witchfinder General, he claimed that Pyewacket was a spirit familiar of witches. So
Yes, yes,
yeah,
I think I saw that in like old 17th century engravings, the name
yeah.
Pyewacket. And yeah. Oh, that's
So
cool. That's cool. And
yeah,
also again quite inappropriate for a
yeah.
cat.
And yeah, that's actually one of the sadder things, and that reminded me of all things, Kiki's Delivery Service,
Right, right,
is
right.
that when Kiki becomes an adult, she can't talk to her cat anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And in this,
Aw.
when Gillian becomes mortal, Pyewacket leaves and is
Hmm.
not her cat anymore. I thought that was really heartbreaking and very similar, and I wonder if that's just a part of witch lore, because that it happens in both things, where when you're no longer magical, you can't talk to cats anymore. They can't be your familiar anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, what a perfect symbolism for giving up your powers, for like
Yeah,
stepping into the quote unquote real, or let's say mundane world. Yeah, gosh, the romantic lead actor needs to be a real friggin' charisma powerhouse to sell that concept that this woman would do that, that they would
I don't know who
choose
you
to
get,
not. Yeah, exactly. I
because it
don't
has to
know
be
that.
someone who can play it awkwardly.
Mhm.
But like like I don't want to say this because I don't really feel this way about him, but I feel like this is like a 90s Hugh
Hugh Grant.
Hugh Grant role. Like that was
Right, yeah.
his bit, was being super handsome and charming but also awkward.
Awkward. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
And
I see that. I see that.
I don't know a lot of other actors who have that as their thing. Oh, I can't think of any off the top of my head. That was the only one that came to me. But yeah, you can't do it with Jimmy Stewart. He can do the awkward. The part where he tries to get the when he finds out everything that's happened and he feels bad about it, which is understandable that you've been love spelled into something. He
Mhm.
tries to get the spell removed, and the scene where he's getting the spell removed is his funniest scene, when the kind of lead witch makes him this disgusting thing and tells him to drink it. And he has to like googly eye force feed himself this, like, he's actually kind of funny in those scenes in a sort of Disney live action way.
Right.
And then if you really want to look into the meaning of the movie, there is a scene early on where Gillian says to I can't remember if she's talking to Jack Lemmon or her aunt, but she says, don't you wish you could spend Christmas Eve listening to Christmas carols and not bongo drums?" And I just like, no, absolutely not. I'd way rather go to this weird gay Zodiac witch club and listen to bongo drums than hang out with a bunch of suburban workaday, dorks. Like
Uh-huh.
it sort of plants the seed that she wants the mundane. And I feel like a movie would be made in the 70s, 80s, 90s would be about how that's what she wants, and then she realizes that's not what she wants.
Mhm.
And that doesn't happen here.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Probably, another reason why I was kind of emotionally distant from the movie. Like, it is pretty conservative,
Hmm.
ultimately,
Yeah.
where compared to I Married a Witch, it's like, yeah, it ends in domesticity,
Hmm.
but it feels like a bungle. It feels like, we're all just laughing. We're all, poking elbows, nudging ribs. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, and this this all feels like a far more sincere or sincerely meant romance. And from the moment you're no longer nudging ribs, you start to you have to work a little bit harder because it's not just telling jokes all the time. You want that emotional buy-in.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, I'm not a 1958 person that is like, oh, give up the powers and blah, blah, blah. You better give me some nice side characters and gags if that's the way you're going to go with your main romance. And there were Lemon, Kovacs, Lancaster. They're all great. Uh, just that it's unfortunate that the uh, actual emotional weight of the movie wasn't really there for me.
It's definitely something it would only happen in the 50s. Like we just with the 40s you would have you probably have like you have to buy the code, end it with them getting married and not, that kind of stuff. But the filmmakers would be pushing buttons the whole time so you could
Hmm.
read
Hmm.
into it. Whereas in the 50s it was like this return to domesticity. And it's actually
Right.
a problem for a lot of women driven, like there's a bunch of great Marilyn Monroe movies that sort of ultimately have this and then you have to get married thing at the end, that are
Hmm.
some like How to Marry a Millionaire doesn't really have a satisfying ending because of that, and it's one of my favorite movies otherwise. So
Hmm.
it and I guess the good news is that this is a perfect encapsulation of what you would see from a accidental witch marriage movie in 1958, and that by the
Hmm.
time we hit 1960 you're already going away from this by quite a bit.
Hmm.
A couple more notes. I said when Stewart tells his fiance that Gillian is a witch, she says, "Oh, Shep, you never learned to spell," which which is it's that's a bitch joke, and I was like, "Oh, damn!" And just mix that up in there in your 1958 family film. Thought that was pretty fun. Saul Sachs, the creator of Bewitched, as we said, he was doing an interview and he said that Bell Book and Candle and I Married a Witch were basically to the point where he felt like he was ripping them off, but because the studio Columbia owned the rights to both movies, he didn't really have a problem with it because nobody would sue them then because the
Yeah.
intellectual rights are already with the same studio. And then after Bewitch ended in 76, NBC actually tried to make a Bell Book and Candle sitcom. There was a pilot with Yvette Mimieux, who I only know as the pretty blonde Eloy from The Time Machine. Did you ever see the original Time Machine?
Yeah, I
Um,
think so. And isn't she also in Disney's The Black Hole?
oh, is she? Oh, she could be. Maybe I have seen her in that. I just think like Jesus, and a blonde Eloy is about as ditzy a character as you can get. Like the whole point is that they don't have any.
No brain activity.
Yep, she's in the black hole. So she was in the black hole in 79, almost 80. Yeah, I don't remember that movie very well. I have definitely seen it more than once though.
I did a podcast episode on it, which is why I remember it.
She and Michael Murphy, who's a guy who's in a whole bunch of Robert Altman movies, and he's the incumbent mayor in Batman Returns. That's how I remembered him. Uh, they shot a pilot. It wasn't picked up. It's not available anywhere. And then in the 2000s, Disney planned a remake with Alicia Keys as Gillian.
Oh,
Um, I don't know. I'm too old. Would tweens be into Alicia Keys in this story in 2006? I
in
think
2006,
so.
yeah, yeah, she was, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Uh-huh.
because I
That
just
would
sort of
work.
think of Alicia Keys as like stoned. Is like she's so mellow about everything. I just never really I never really considered that she would have been an actress at some point. She's been in a bunch of stuff. I guess I saw Smoking Aces, but I don't remember it. But
Oh, is she
anyway,
in that?
yeah,
I guess I
apparently.
saw that too, but I was pretty high when I saw it, I think.
I was you were high and I was literally on high dose chemotherapy when I saw that movie. It was I watched it in a hospital, so I don't really remember. Anyway, that yeah, but that since then there's never been a remake. There was a Bewitched movie, but no, neither of these two things we just talked about were ever remade again.
Right,
Uh
yeah.
I guess that's all I got on that. Any more mean things to say about Jimmy Stewart?
Well, it was a missed opportunity. Uh, a poorly cast movie. Uh,
Yeah.
uh, Kim Novak, you don't throw your powers away, honey.
There's one part where his fiance says something mean about how she got her in trouble because she wouldn't wear shoes to school. And that's like
Mhm.
the one bit of horniness that Jimmy Stewart has is he immediately looks at the floor to see if Gillian's wearing shoes or not. I feel like Billy Wilder would have had way more scenes like that if he would have been in charge of this movie.
Like an insert shot of Jimmy like licking his lips.
Yeah, like big eyeball. I mean, yeah, yeah. And he would have had to trick Stewart into doing it because Stewart would say, "Oh, that's body. I don't want to do that." And so he would say, like, oh, "Imagine you're going to eat a steak." Okay.
Yeah, nice juicy turkey.
Then creating a fantasy world where Billy Wilder is torturing Jimmy Stewart. But yeah, that's all I got on this one.
Okay, yeah, me too.
All right. So then we have Night of the Eagle from 1962. When this was picked up by American International Pictures and Roger Corman, it was renamed Burn Witch Burn, which is a line in the movie, but does not describe the film at all. The poster and the title imply that this is like a Witchfinder General type film, and it is absolutely not.
No,
So
indeed.
Night of the Eagle is also sort of a weird title, but it's better. It's a better title.
It is weird, huh? That they really focus on what is essentially a minor, well, climactic, I suppose, set piece,
Yeah.
but it just happens to, I don't know, it's like calling Star Wars the gun that shoots lasers. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, there's blasters in Star Wars, I guess, but
Yeah. I mean, even calling Star Wars Death Star makes more sense.
right, yeah, because at least the Death Star is like a fairly plot relevant thing that
Yeah.
uh,
The
calling
Night
Star
of
Wars,
the
I guess,
Eagle sounds like a
trench
World
run.
War II like action
Yeah, yeah,
drama.
yeah.
I might
Uh-huh,
even
yeah.
be. Is there a movie called The Night of the Eagle? Night
We're,
of
I guess we're thinking about where eagles dare and the eagle
Where
has
Eagles
landed.
Dare. Yeah. And then there's Night of the something. I can't remember. There's definitely a war movie with Night of, but I don't remember.
Hmm.
There's so many of those kind of guys get together like Dirty Dozen, or well, I guess Dirty Dozen's a little Guns and Navarone type movies.
Yeah.
Uh, that sounds like that. That's what I would. If somebody said, "Have you ever seen Night of the Eagle?" That would have been the first thing that popped in my mind. Is like, is that like Guns
Yeah,
and
same.
Navarone? This is based. It's one of three movies based on Fritz Lieber's 1952 novella Conjure. We're going to call it a novel, so novella, yeah, novel Conjure Wife, which was initially released in parts in Unknown Worlds magazine in 1943, then compiled in 1952 into a novel. The other two adaptations are Reginald Leborg's Universal Horror entry, The Weird Woman, starring Lon Chaney Jr. and Anne Gwynn. And then Richard Shore made a 1980 version, which is more of a comedy with Terry Garr called Witch's Brew, has an alternate title of Which is Which. Luana went and
Yes.
read the whole book. And I was going to
I mean,
watch. Weird Woman to like make up for it, but I can only find the Svengoolie version. For some reason, Weird Woman is just not available streaming, and I just don't have a lot of patience for Svengoolie type stuff. And I apologize to. I probably have a lot of people who, because of Patrick and Jim, listen in Chicago, and so I have nothing against Svengoolie. I just don't like watching movies that way. Anyway, you read the book.
Yeah, I've read quite a bit of Fritz Leiber. I've read his Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser sword and sorcery stories. There's like 7 collections of those, but he is a prolific writer outside of that too. And uh, Conjure Wife was apparently his debut novel uh,
Hmm.
back in like I want to say what was it, early 40s something.
Yeah,
So
they said 43 was when it was published in parts, and then 52 it was finally published as one big solid book.
right, right.
Yeah.
Um, the Weird Woman though is a 1943-ish movie, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So they
So they,
really jumped on that really quick.
yeah, and that you
Uh,
don't see that often. There weren't like very many. Like what are some other like? I feel like H.P. Lovecraft would been also publishing in similar things. You didn't see a lot of Lovecraft adaptations early on, or
yeah, I think that the earliest one I can point to is the Vincent Price star, the Haunted Palace,
which then they
uh,
sold as a Edgar Allan Poe
as
movie.
an Edgar Allan Poe movie.
Yeah, yeah,
Even though it was an adaptation of The Case of Charles Dexter Ward.
right.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about those pulp authors. I just know Lovecraft and now I forgot his name, so it sounds like I don't know him. The Conan guy.
I'm
His
already
name is not.
Howard.
Yeah, those are the two I know, but those are probably the two most famous. So, oh, and I guess we're going to talk about Richard Matheson in a minute here. I do know Richard Matheson, but I think he's a slightly later generation than these guys. He's more of a
Yeah,
50s
I
guy.
mean, technically, Lieber was very young. Lieber was obviously Conjure Wife was his first novel, but I think he had only been publishing short stories since like the late 30s or something as a kid. And he was, in fact, also in correspondence with Lovecraft. He wrote Lovecraft a couple times.
That
And
makes sense. A lot of these guys seem to know each other.
oh yeah, yeah, they
Lovecraft had a
were
lot of pen
definitely.
pals.
Oh yeah, God, he Lovecraft was a very prolific letter writer. I think he probably wrote more letters, and more letters have been found
They
safeguarded than actually his fiction.
Yeah,
Uh,
and they've helped us learn things about a lot of him and other people. It's interesting. I guess it
mhm.
was part of his psychosis would be to be friends with people he'd write letters to instead of friends that they like to go out to restaurants with. I don't know
Right,
for
yeah.
sure, but it seems very like him. Yeah,
Now, I've not seen Weird Woman, nor have you, apparently, because you
yeah.
only
Nor have
were able
I.
to find this Fenguli movie. Um, but the sort of the early 40s version of Conjure Wife that was printed in parts in that magazine, that pulp magazine,
Mhm.
is not the version that entirely came out in the early 50s, because that was a revised and expanded edition
Mhm.
that kind of was published as a solo book, and that's usually the one that gets reprinted. So I would be
Mhm.
curious to see Weird One, because that I mean, depending on how loyal it is an adaptation, but I'd be curious to see how different it is, because it's probably pretty difficult to find the 1943 version of Conjure Wife somewhere.
It's
Night
curious
of the Eagle.
that they
Oh,
made
sorry.
like a horror version in the 40s. This is more of like a thriller, and then they made a
Uh-huh.
comedy. And you can all do that from the same source.
Hmm, hmm. I would say that the book is like pretty tense and gets mildly scary.
Hmm.
Um, I would say that it is like the equivalent maybe of a relatively intense Buffy episode.
Okay.
you know, it's definitely very domestic. It's very normal people that also do magic in the office in the world of academia. Yeah, perhaps it's nice tell our listeners what the movie is about?
Yeah,
Uh,
I can read the I didn't read the synopsis from Letterboxd for the other two, but I can sort of read the I think it has a decent synopsis here. They probably took it from the Blu-ray. A skeptical college professor discovers that his wife has been practicing magic for years. Like the learned, rational fellow he is, he forces her to destroy. Oh, that's too far. We get. Yeah, so it's about a professor who's super rational, the most British man who ever lived, who discovers that his wife has been practicing magic, and it is a way to protect him. And so most of the movie, she is not a villain. She is a good person, but she's not really the main character. It's really about him coming to terms with the fact that something outside of his academic understanding is occurring.
I was kind of on board at the start because I
Hmm.
think the actor playing Norman, Peter Wingard, is pretty charming.
Yeah.
Like he's pretty funny. Like with his sort of sly remarks with his students and whatnot. Like, oh, we've magicked away another hour, fellas.
He's
Thought that was.
he's that really British thing who's an asshole who you still like. Like he's just sort of mean to people, but you know that if he's respectful when he needs to be. It's a very
Right,
British
yeah.
stiff. He's super stiff upper lippy. Like he's very post-war British man.
And here in the book, we kind of start with him stumbling upon the magic accoutrements of his wife, just off a weird hunch. That's where we meet him,
Hmm.
and it's not a great moment to introduce him because it's like, what are you doing, rifling through your wife's stuff on a weird hunch, dude? and and I do feel that the movie actually builds it up more, and he kind of like stumbles upon it. He's not going through his wife's stuff randomly,
Hmm.
but there is it is of course a relatively low stakes movie slash story, but the adaptation in the movie makes it a an even lower stakes story than it is in the novel. There's a trifecta of witches. There's a triad. There's Mrs. Carr, Mrs. Sawtell, and Mrs. Gunnison, who
Hmm.
are um, well, kind of once the protection charms wear off, they're like, "Ooh, get those two out of here." And I feel that you don't really get much of a triad in the movie. It's all Mrs. Carr.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and the book really has this idea of like, oh, there's three witches that are, working in tandem, being sinister and all. And ooh, that Mrs. Carr is kind of the batty old one. But as the book goes on, it kind of is revealed to be a facade, and she is actually the most powerful of the three witches, and the other two are kind of scared of her. And they absolutely kind of build her up as this entity almost, as this force to be reckoned with. And she conjures demons. She like there's actually a demon that follows Tansy around and controls her and stuff, and is only seen in glimpses. Very kind of lament configuration ish.
Hmm.
That like you can see him sometimes, and he's standing there behind her and whatnot, and it could have been pretty scary, I think, but I feel like it would have been feels like a budget issue,
Yeah.
because ultimately, yeah, the book has a gargoyle that Norman sees outside his window, and it's always like he has the feeling, hey, did was that gargoyle somewhere else last time that I were like the there's a statue that seems to be moving towards him as the days go on, and the days without magical protection.
Hmm.
Um, and that has kind of been subsumed into not a gargoyle but an eagle statue in the movie, and hence the title, The Night of the Eagle. Um,
It's a lot cheaper to rent an eagle and put it on
yeah,
a miniature set for a couple days than it is to make a whole gargoyle that can move, I guess.
exactly, like make a stop motion gargoyle or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking. When I was reading the book, I was like, "Oh, Night of the Eagle. What an odd title. Okay." And I was like keeping an eye out for what it could possibly be. What could that be referencing?
Hmm.
And when Tansy leaves, for his protection and he chases her, he checks into a hotel. In the movie he goes to a graveyard, like he goes to a mausoleum.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
which I thought was a funny change, because like, okay, why go to a mausoleum? But and that hotel is called the Eagle. And so I was like, okay, it's like, is there like some climactic stuff gonna go down here in this hotel, and maybe the action is moved more, like the weight of the action is shifted more towards whatever's gonna happen in this hotel, and hence why it's called Night of the Eagle. Turns out it wasn't. Uh,
Nope.
but there was actually a pretty intense scene where he conjures up Tansy to come to him, and you know she has in fact already drowned, and like she like there's sloshing footsteps and like a slow bonking on the door. And he opens the door, and there's Tansy with pale skin and blue lips and seaweed in her hair, and like she is in fact dead. And so they don't go as hard in the movie. uh
Yeah.
but the they do end up bringing Tansy back and defeating Mrs. Carr and whatnot. Yeah, the movie is definitely a way more low key affair, which I assumed was for budgetary reasons. So how did you experience it without that constant comparison with the book that I was involuntarily doing?
Well, I actually my first note is that I was surprised how, like you were saying, the first part of the movie, maybe the first act, not quite the first half, how much of it is showing without telling, and
Hmm.
it's the audience is left to figure out what's going on without any
Hmm.
expositional help, and it was like I thought it had a lot of faith in its audience for a movie that Roger Corman ended up buying, and the Corman version just has an opening narration. That's the only change he made. I really liked the buildup because it sort of implies a like it does a good job. Like I don't know. I feel like I knew his wife was the good guy and not the bad guy from the go, but it sort of implies that she could be part of the problem, and it implies that there's a larger almost like Rosemary's Baby level like thing going on here. Like
Hmm.
but like you said, it's not clear that there's really more than one witch. It's just sort of the very beginning. It's clear that there are multiple social climbers that have it out
Hmm.
for him. And it was that part was funny to me because my grandparents and my mom all worked in colleges. And so I've always heard
Okay.
stories about how everybody at college is like trying to get up on everybody else in the staff. So it was like and just the idea that you would base a thriller slash borderline horror movie on the fears of these things when it's like there's a lot of these like British and Australian movies about, and I guess French movies about schools and the dramas that go on in schools and the dramas that afflict professors. Like this reminded me of The Great Wave, but his wife's a witch instead, and there's witches out to get him. He's and so I really liked the beginning, and I still liked the movie after that, but it does become really expositionally heavy after that, which is kind of a disappointment. Where it's explaining everything at a certain point. I really like how very British it is
Hmm.
because there's that thing that soul irrational invading the rational, like someone who's militantly rational, and that some of the suspects early on, he has a female student that has a crush on him that is an inappropriate thing who accuses him of raping her, which is like really heavy shit. Like when that comes up, I was like, oh, that's pretty hardcore. Like I have a feeling that most educators have that fear somewhere in the back of their mind, like when
Right.
they're dealing with students of a certain age that like I mean I know this is like a real issue, and so
Hmm.
the fear, the initial fear is that he's going to lose his job and maybe get like his entire reputation ruined for assaulting a young woman who he absolutely did not assault. This sort of like the fear of a false accusation. And
Mhm.
so there's like a reality to the fear, but then we discover no, that's also part of this larger thing that his wife is trying to protect him from. But then there's another student who is that girl's boyfriend who threatens to shoot him later.
Right.
I mean, and that stuff, I just thought that was really decent drama. I was really into all that stuff. And I love that one of the worst things that like the first sign that something bad is happening to the Mr. Stiffest of Stiff Upper Lips is that he gets a dirty phone call. And it's like that's the thing that sets everything off is a dirty phone call. And it's like I really thought it was going to be more like killer spiders and snakes or like Omen, like
Right,
accidents,
right.
like deadly accidents happening. I didn't realize
Uh-huh,
it was
uh-huh.
going to be he would be accused of sexually assaulting a student. That was kind of wild to me. Is that happened in the book?
Yeah, and
Oh my.
the boyfriend is actually unrelated. Like they made him her boyfriend in the movie, but he was just a different kid who was making trouble about, being accused of cheating, or like his grades weren't
Mhm.
high enough, and like, you got in for me, Mr. Taylor, and showing up to his office with a gun. That was just purely based off of like, I don't like the fucking grade that you gave me.
Yeah.
uh, I
And I
guess it
guess
was just meant to be like, oh, shit's going down at work. Your life is spiraling the drain. You've got one rape accusation, one attempted murder from.
and then your wife is seemingly insane and she starts to fall apart emotionally, and the idea that maybe this is all being created by supernatural powers and not just a series of bummers.
Right.
It's a cool idea. I like the idea of a man going through that. I do think the actor does make a difference, like you're saying. The witch her is played by Janet Blair, who was a big band singer and another World War II pinup turned part-time
Yeah.
actress. She was not much of a she didn't act that much. She was usually
Right.
in musicals because of her voice.
Hmm.
And it's so funny that like Novak was just a little too young to be a World War II pinup, or else we would have had three
Yeah.
World War II pinups. But it's yeah, 2 out of 3 is a good average, I think.
Totally.
But yeah, most of her movies were stuff like Broadway and I Love Trouble. This is the only horror drama she ever did, and she didn't do a lot of other dramas. It was like musicals, and there's a couple crime movies that she did, like noir type things. And she worked with Kim Novak the same year she made Night of the Eagle. They were both
Oh
in
wow.
Michael Gordon's Boys Night Out, and
Hmm.
I assume they didn't, but it would be so cute if they had a little conversation like, "Oh, you're playing a witch wife. That's so interesting."
Yeah. Right.
The weird thing that happened, and Christine agreed with me when I mentioned this, but she reminded me a lot of Helen Hunt. I don't
No, I can
really
see
know how
that.
to. Yeah, maybe I think maybe she's closer to like something like Janet Leigh could have played this character pretty
Hmm.
easily. She's also a Republican, but we'll ignore that because we're saying nice things about her. Um, but yeah, the male league, Peter Wingard, I think he looks a bit like Jim Varney,
I
especially when
can
you see
see that. Oh my god.
those like early sexy Jim Varney reading Shakespeare videos that go get passed
Hmm.
around every once in a while.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, right. I instantly knew what you meant.
and you could have done an Ernest P. Laurel version of this movie. Vern, I think my wife's a witch. She's, she's leaving spiders and boxes everywhere. I can't remember if he had an accent.
Yeah, he had
um,
like a southern accent.
yeah, okay.
Vern, they done accusing me of untoward behavior.
Yeah, I guess he would. Maybe he'll be a camp counselor. Like, it would be a sequel to Ernest Goes to Camp, and he'd be a camp counselor instead of a English professor. But yeah, this guy was in a lot of British television shows. Like, basically, if you can name a '60s British television show, he was on at least one episode of that.
Hmm.
Um, and the year before this, he was the male lead in Jack Clayton's The Innocents, which is another shockingly scary film for how low key the whole thing is. Like, just
Mm,
amazing movie, and probably my favorite Deborah Kerr work, outside of Black Narcissus. But
right.
speaking of Black Narcissus, one of the people who might be a witch that I guess in the book is a witch, but in the movie isn't really a witch, is played by Kerr's Black Narcissus co-star Catherine Byron, who's the one in that in Black Narcissus that basically is driven insane by her lust for
Mhm.
the man, the nun, that's the original lustful nun. And unfortunately, she does not have a lot of screen time in this. Margaret Johnson is the main, is Miss Carr, and she's got a limp
Mhm.
and shit. There's actually a scene where he realizes Miss Carr has possessed his wife because she's walking with the limp, and I thought that was a pretty cool touch. They wanted Peter Cushing for this role, and there's been certain things that has said that Cushing was sick, and another thing said that he chose to do the Hammer movie Captain Klieg instead. But I could see Cushing in this role really easily. He would
Yeah, agreed.
fit in perfect. And then the interesting thing, if you're comparing it to especially Bell Book and Candle, is the leads
Mhm.
aren't only an age appropriate couple, but Janet Blair was actually 5 years older than Wingard at the time.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
This, and
You
then
hardly ever see that.
yeah, and then another fun touch is Wingard is the one who is constantly objectified. He's always finding an excuse to take off his shirt in this movie.
He's got the high Kylo Ren pants.
Yeah. And he's got a nice body for 60s guy
Yeah.
before they were like he's pretty fit. Yeah,
Yeah, that is legitimately kind of a find in a 60s movie. Like, oh, okay, this guy's
he's sexy Jim Varney on more than one level. Like
yeah.
I tell people I'm the worst judge of what makes a man sexy, but like I don't
Uh-huh.
know. I think he's up there
Yeah, yeah. I would definitely say that of our three male leads, he is the most attractive one.
easily. He has the most range too. Like he really goes through the ringer. And I like the fact that so much of after a while, like you think you could do a version of this movie where it was really about him. You could do a really sexist version where it's about him and his the woman as like his property and he needs to get her back. But
Mhm,
he is really in love with her,
mhm.
and feels terrible that he had anything to do with her having to, like, because she leaves after he
Right,
makes her
right.
burn all of her
Yeah, yeah.
charms. And you really buy how deeply he loves her and how
Mhm, mhm.
frantic he is to
Totally.
save her. um
Yeah.
yeah, it works really well. Never mentioned the director is Sidney Hayers, who's he's like a British stalwart. He's editor turned second unit turned, I would call this a B plus movie. Like, it's a B movie, but it's like up there. Um,
Yeah, it's definitely a well-made and well thought through B movie.
yeah.
It's
Like, I think it's
it's
like almost A level for British, because they weren't putting out as many movies as Hollywood. So it's
mhm,
black and
mhm.
white though, so they were saving some money.
I was gonna say it's weird after like going after Bell Book and Candle to go back to a black and white movie.
Hmm.
Uh, that like that definitely is a showcase of like this is a cheap production. It's like I believe the first Gamera was black and white, where
I think
Godzilla had already
a
gone color.
I think the first three are black and white.
No,
Um,
Baragon is the second one, and
Baragons, is that
that's
in
the
color?
rainbow
Okay.
one. It's the rainbow
Oh, okay.
one.
That's the second one. Okay. I'm forgetting. I'm messing up the order anyway.
Uh-huh.
The only other Sidney Hayers movie I've ever seen is Circus of Horrors. And that was because Patrick and I talked about all the horror movies released in the year 1960, and that was a 1960 horror movie. But the thing that really has this movie has that's interesting for classic horror fans is the screenwriters.
Yeah.
And the main credited ones are Charles Beaumont and Richard Matheson. And like I said, Matheson was did a lot of I can't remember what you call the pulp. It's like weird fiction is what you I think the term.
Uh-huh.
He also wrote I Am Legend and The Shrinking Man. I Am Legend is like one of the most important horror books of its era. So people know Matheson, but Beaumont is almost on the same level. He's just not as well known.
Mm.
He did the novel and the screenplay for The Intruder, which is most
Uh,
people remember as the segregation drama starring William Shatner, the racist William Shatner movie directed by Corman. The Clan William Shatner movie. I can't remember if he's actually in the Clan in that. I think two Ku Klux Klan things in one podcast. But they both worked for Roger Corman, and
right.
the two of them split the Corman Poe movies almost down the middle, with
Oh wow.
Matheson doing House of Usher, Pit and the Pendulum, and The Raven, and Beaumont
Mhm.
doing Premature Burial, The Haunted Palace, which we just talked about, and Mask of the Red Death.
One of my faves.
Yeah, I mean, I like all those movies, but that's just like really fascinating to me that I thought that they had co-written all of them, but no, they like really sort of just split it down the line. And they're
Mhm.
also both kind of important to the Twilight Zone.
Right.
There's a bit of Twilight Zone-ness to the idea that finding out your wife is a witch. That's a good twist, and then a last act twist, finding out that she was actually a good witch and that you've
Uh-huh.
rejected her for the wrong reason. That's a Twilight Zone
Right.
episode, I feel.
Yeah,
Um,
totally, totally.
and then the third screenwriter, George Baxt, was also a novelist, and he wrote
Mhm.
Circus of Horrors, and he wrote City of the Dead, which was another 1960 horror movie that Patrick and I talked about with Christopher Lee in it. They would make an interesting double feature because City of the Living Dead is about a devil worshipping group that is headed by a college professor secretly,
Oh, cool,
whereas
cool,
this
cool.
one has a college professor kind of combating and unearthing an occult group. So
Yeah.
they're really similar in that regard, and having one where the hoity professor is the good guy and one where the hoity professor is the villain, it's kind of an interesting
Mhm.
dynamic. Because I immediately said this is like City of the Dead, and then I was looking later, and I'm like, oh my god, same guy wrote both of these. I mean, they're both. I mean, it's based on Conjure Wife, but it's interesting that they're like maybe they like went, oh, Conjure Wife. It's kind of like let's call that dude who wrote that horror movie that takes place at the college. And then I have a note here saying that the opening credits are a blatant Saul Bass ripoff. They're trying really hard to do Vertigo's opening credits,
Right,
but
right.
in black and white and zero money. Um,
Uh,
I
if nothing else, that'll differentiate you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I really like the scene early on where they're having a party and they're basically talking about witchcraft shit right under his nose. And it's almost
Right.
like they're daring each other to almost come out and say it and see how far they can push it before he starts to
Right,
listen.
right.
And the joke,
Mhm.
like he's never gonna listen to this. He won't believe it. And his wife's like,
Mhm.
shut up, shut up.
Right, right, right.
And I like that she's sort of almost an action hero in this because she's like protecting him the whole movie and like
Mhm.
I don't like I think this would be an easy one to remake and have like drag me to hell like scenes where she's actually having to
Oh.
fight to do with a conjuring to ward off this shit. Like you could turn it into a borderline action. Well, I guess it is sort of with the eagle attacking him, but I feel like you could do more with that. I guess what I'm saying is
Quite a
Sam
bit more.
Raimi should remake this.
You you took the words right out of my mouth. I think Sam Raimi could do a hell of a fun movie with this.
And all those Sam Raimi movies, those early, they all, especially the one Ivan wrote with him, have this vague misogyny to them too.
Yes.
So it would almost fit. I really felt like I was going to like this the least because
Mhm.
of it's it doesn't have a great reputation, but I think I don't know. I actually really liked it and found myself thinking about it. And you're right, the ending is not super satisfying. I don't know. I actually ended up liking it more than Bell Book and Candle, I think.
That's a tough one because like with Bell Book and Candle, there's kind of like the conservatism that holds it back,
Mm-hmm.
and with Night of the Eagle, I, foolishly read Conjure Wife,
Right.
so I'm constantly going like, oh, yeah, that was a budget decision. That was,
Yeah.
this kind of scales it back. The movie's not without its charms, but like I had problems with it that were different problems than I had with Bell Book and Candle. Um, but I would say, yeah, yeah, sure, why not? I'd say it's better than Bell Book and Candle in the sense that it's a little less conservative. So, like, even if I'm kind of slightly disappointed in certain things about it, its heart is in the right place still. But to
Yeah,
me, the number one movie of this episode is for sure, easily I Married a Witch.
yeah, I agree. I agree. And
Yeah,
then
okay, okay.
the other two are very good movies with some problems.
Yeah,
Um,
I would say the same indeed. That
you
that's a
can
good average
you
for
could solve Bell Book and Candle's problem very easily if you go back in time. It would
Mhm.
be harder to solve all of Night of the Eagles problems. Oh, I do have one more last note.
No,
Um,
go ahead.
and this is just me trying to impress people with my knowledge.
Mhm,
The scenes where Norman is trying to save Tansy,
mhm.
Christine kept on saying "Making Christmas" because it does a da 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 da, and I was
Oh,
like,
the
yeah, it does
DSEA.
sound like that. But what it was is I finally realized those are the first three notes of uh Berlois. I think you say Berlois. Oh boy, I am not good with these names. But
Berlioz.
Dreams of Witches, a Sabbath is da 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 da. So it's just the first da 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 da
It's
first four
it's
notes.
it's that particular theme is, yeah, sure, Berlioz
Mhm.
used it in Dreams of the Witches Sabbath, but that goes back even further. It's called the Dies Irae, the Wrath
Oh
of
fuck! It
God.
is. It is the DSC. God, yeah, you showed me up. You just blew me away. Oh, the
I'm
DSC.
terribly sorry, Gabe.
No, no, you're the intellectual of the two of us. So,
I suppose that's true. I'm
but
not gonna fight that. Sorry, yeah.
yeah, so them and William Alwyn and Danny Elfman were all pulling from the same reference point. But the Danny Elfman one was just the one that was in my Christine and my mind because of seeing Nightmare for Christmas 7,000 times in our childhoods and teenhoods. It is
Yeah, yeah.
amazing how good score can also uplift some of these movies. That's something
Oh,
we
yeah.
definitely lost in lower budget movies over the decades. Is a really good score.
It's crazy. Like you would see like full on like MST3K movies, and they
Hmm.
would just have these pretty good orchestral scores.
Yeah, when Patrick and I covered a bunch of giant monster movies from 1957, even the
Mhm.
really bad ones had pretty good. They'd stole some of the music. It was some of it was library, but it brought something to it because it was theatrical.
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I did an episode on the Beastmaster on my podcast,
Oh
and
yeah,
I hadn't seen Beastmaster in like decades. And within a few seconds of like the title starting, I was like, you know what? I bet this is gonna have like a banger score and like look like $5.
yeah.
And it did.
Do you have any other movies or books or TV shows or whatever that you would suggest that you remember about men falling in love with witches, not necessarily marrying them? That sort of cut us off for this. As I was like, let's just choose ones where there is at least the indication of a wedding that's going to happen.
um, hmm. You know, a gender flipped version of that would be Beetlejuice.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I guess the husband is worse, but The Witches of Eastwick.
Hmm.
Uh, but you know, good movie and all, but even though not really about you know, an innocent guy being drawn into a witchy relationship, quite the opposite. Um,
Yeah,
hmm, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, I suppose we mentioned
yeah.
that
That was.
before.
There's a movie I've never seen, but I'm sure the Sandra Bullock, Nicole Kidman movie, Practical Magic.
Practical Magic, yeah, I've seen that one, but again, decades ago. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And again, there the concept is flipped a little bit because it's about Sandra Bullock kind of like saving her ditzy sister Nicole Kidman from like bad choices, bad situations, and like even where it's like a human dude, it's more like he's the antagonist kind of, you know, because he's a shitty boyfriend.
Hmm.
Uh, so that dynamic is kind of switched where like the lady magic is not so much to enthrall and beguile men, but more like to protect another woman from, you know, general patriarchies. So
Hmm.
yeah, I guess people did kind of start flipping that concept on its head in the decades later.
The
uh,
two movies I came up with that just don't fit because there's no marriages involved were Damiano Damiani's The Witch, which in Italy is La Straga in Amore, And then sometimes it's called The Witch in Love, depending on which version you get. It's from 1966. It got a nice Blu-ray release. Um, I think it's my favorite variation on the theme, but again, not about marriage. It's about a librarian who gets a job translating and cataloging this wealthy, mysterious woman's massive collection of erotic literature, only to discover that she's some sort of succubus figure that is driving him to this sort of, she's making him fall in love with her, but in a way that makes him despair, basically.
Mhm.
And it's this really surreal, dreamy movie, and Richard Johnson is the main actor, who some people might remember as the Doctor in Lucio Fulci's Zombie. And then everyone's favorite Italian anarchist heartthrob, Gian Maria Volante, is the sort of other man who the Switch is kind of giving up for a new victim.
Mhm.
It's a really fascinating movie. And then one that I covered when I did, Bill Ackerman and I did a thing about alternative American horror movies from the 70s. And he brought me all these things. There's one kind of new Hollywood movie by Ken Friedman called Death by Invitation, that is another really dreamy version of this, about a woman who is a reincarnation of a witch who goes to take revenge against the Puritans that killed her.
Mhm.
And that sounds like it's much more like it's all wrapped around this really intense performance from this mostly unknown actress, and it's really strange in a really beautiful way. So those are
Mhm.
like the two that, like, if we were just doing witches in love, I would pick those two. But
Right, right.
they didn't really fit what we were going for. And then I
Mhm.
imagine there's probably a million manga and anime about, like,
Oh, right, yeah.
I bet you there's a bunch where there's a nerdy boy who lives with a half dozen witches that all love him, and wacky hijinks ensue. I'm sure that exists.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
probably 7 of them. But yeah, that was my further suggestions. And yeah, if people know anime and manga stuff, I probably won't watch it, but I'd like to know it exists. Anything else on this subject?
I was happy to get an excuse to read more Fritz Leiber.
Cool, cool. Well, I think you've had some cool stuff going on since the last time we recorded. So why don't you tell the people where they can find you and your
Well,
work?
I still co-host Defend Your Trash Movie with my buddy Travis Kirkland. We can be found on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your uh, podcasts. I've had some short fiction published
Right.
in on a couple of websites. You can find my short fiction on swordsandsorcerymagazine.com and roguesinthehousepresents.com. You can find another one in on itch. It's choose your own price. Look at Wingraph magazine for cozy fantasy romance special 2025. I have a story in that. And go to Backer Kit and back New Edge Sword and Sorcery magazine, in which I have the title story for issue 5, which I'm pretty proud of.
Yeah.
um, Currently shopping around a whole ass novella that I
Nice.
wrote. So yeah, I haven't sold that one yet. Hope to be hope to have some good news in a few weeks, but knock on wood.
Yeah, I mean, and I suppose which love stories kind of, if we really use our imagination, kind of fits with the cozy
Oh, absolutely.
fantasy
The I don't know if you read that
romance.
one.
No, I
Uh,
haven't. Is it fit?
yeah, it
Oh,
is. It
cool.
is about a wizard's apprentice and who kind of falls in love with a knight in that cozy fantasy one. And there's in the other sword and sorcery one, it's a the the bodyguard of a princess who kind of starts an affair with a princess, and the princess kind of starts dabbling in black magic, and
Yeah, well, there we
she
go.
there you go. So yeah, I suppose it does fit with the theme.
We'll pretend I planned that. We'll pretend I had foresight and I planned that out. And this wasn't just something I had on a list. As per usual, you can find me on the Genre Grinder website. You can find me on the Genre Grinder Facebook, and you can find me as Gabe Powers on both Letterboxd and Blue Sky. Hi, real quick interruption. Something I forgot to mention while we were originally recording is that Genre Grinder Care's t-shirt and sticker site ended up raising $315, which I donated to Gender Justice here in Minnesota. And something like 2 days later, Gender Justice filed a discrimination charge against Buffalo Wild Wings on behalf of a young woman who was harassed by staff while trying to use the women's bathroom. I don't know if $315 is enough to make a huge difference, but I feel comfortable knowing that I donated the money to people who are trying to make a difference. And once again, thank everybody who donated to that campaign and bought a shirt. I'll try to have new shirts soon. Thank you to the Patreon subscribers who are helping cover the costs of this and the new podcast that Patrick and I started. It's a limited edition podcast where we're watching the 1987 television cartoon Visionaries Knights of the Magical Light that was made to sell toys to kids. And it's sort of a joke podcast that we just decided to do because the world's a sad place and we wanted to do something funny. And until next time, if you discover you've accidentally married a witch, maybe just enjoy the perks and mind your own business. Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.